The stars hung quiet in the black sky as the human ship Peacebringer drifted into neutral space near the Galactic Council core zone. Its hull was silver and smooth, carrying the white and blue flag of Earth glowing gently under the twin suns of the system. Inside the ship, Captain Mira Chun stood at the front of the bridge, her hands behind her back and her eyes fixed on the screen ahead. Her face was calm, but her heart beat hard in her chest. This was it. One last chance. One last talk. One final attempt to save what was left of peace. Behind her sat the Earth delegation, calm and silent in dark suits, each one holding a datapad with every treaty, every promise, every plea made over the past 20 years. The Council had ignored everyone. Now human colonies were under fire. 2 were gone. 3 more under threat. The ship floated into the meeting zone, where all ships must turn off weapons and shields. This was a sacred place for talk and peace. That law had never been broken. On the Council's side, ships from dozens of alien races glowed in all colors. Green spikes of the Zelker, blue rings of the Tolan, red flames of the Kroviks, and in the center the tall ship of the Council leaders. A chime sounded. Connection request from the Council. Mira took a breath and nodded. The screen lit up. There they were. 10 council members sitting in a high golden chamber. Old proud faces from across the galaxy. Some with scales, some with feathers, some with stone-like skin, all looking down at the humans like they were insects. Mira spoke slowly and clearly. She said, "This is our final offer." She said, "Humanity has always wanted peace." She said, "We are asking you to stop the attacks. We will forgive. We will rebuild. But we will not beg again. This is the last time." For a moment, there was silence. Then came the laughter. It started with the Krovik's ambassador, a deep rumbling laugh like rocks falling down a mountain. Then the Zelker joined with a high chittering sound. Soon all of them laughed, mocking, cruel, cold. The Tolan spoke. He said humans are soft. He said humans should kneel. He said Earth will always talk and never act. Another counselor held up a treaty and burned it live on the call. The room behind Mira went still. No one spoke. No one moved. Then something happened. A quiet alarm pinged on the bridge. A message. Mira's second officer checked the data, and his face went pale. He turned to her. "Captain, we are receiving a live emergency broadcast from Sector 9. Outpost Terranavis is under attack." Mira froze. She looked at the screen, then nodded. The message came through. The Council feed was still open. Everyone saw it. The outpost was burning. Flames in space. Children crying. Civilians running. Emergency lights flashing. Ships exploding in the distance. And then came the face of the base commander, covered in ash. He said, "This is an unprovoked attack." He said, "We did not fight back." He said, "We are unarmed." Then the signal cut. The Council feed fell silent. Even the Kroviks stopped laughing. They did not know the attack will be shown live. Mira's hands shook. Her eyes blinked once. Her jaw was tight. But she said nothing. She turned slowly and ended the transmission. She did not scream. She did not curse. She did not cry. She walked off the bridge without a word. The screen went black. The humans on the ship watched her leave. No one followed. Outside, the Peacebringer turned around and began to leave the Council zone. Still silent. Still unarmed. A news drone recorded the moment. A single shot. Mira's face on screen. Cold. Silent. Unblinking. The image spread across the galaxy within the hour. Some saw defeat. Some saw control. Others saw something far worse. A quiet rage. The kind that does not explode but waits. Across Earth, in every human colony, people stopped. They watched that clip again and again. That was the last moment of diplomacy. From that point on, humanity stopped talking. The Council did not know it yet, but they had made their final mistake. And Mira Chun had just become the face of it. The final straw had broken, and now the silence would speak louder than any word ever could. The Council chamber was full of light and pride as alien voices filled the air with laughter and joy. Tall banners of 100 worlds hung from the walls, showing the power of the united races. The chamber floor shimmered with golden glass, and under it flowed a river of glowing energy that symbolized unity, or so they said. The Kravix leader raised a crystal cup and shouted in his deep, growling voice that the humans had finally learned their place. The Zelker ambassador clicked his thin fingers and chirped that Earth had walked away like a dog with no teeth. The Tolan floated above the floor in his bubble chair and said softly that humans were born to speak, not to act. Around the table, other voices joined in. They all believed it was over. The final meeting had shown it. The humans had left without a word. No anger, no threat, only silence. To the council, that silence meant weakness. The Tolan leader smiled with his glassy skin reflecting the chamber light. He said, "Now we move forward without Earth's crying voice." He said, "We no longer need to wait." He said, "We can claim their edge sectors and silence their allies." The council voted quickly. 7 hands raised for expansion, 3 raised for peace. But those 3 were quiet and soon left the room. The Kravix and Zelker drew up maps. They carved new lines across human territory. They gave planets new names before they had even set foot on them. One Kravix officer joked that Mira Chun should be thanked for making things easy. Back in the Peacebringer, the bridge was cold and quiet. Captain Mira Chun sat alone in her quarters, staring at the small model of Earth that floated above her desk. She had not spoken in hours. Not since the transmission. Not since Terra Novis burned. Her hands were still, her eyes hard. Her crew stayed silent outside her door. They did not want to disturb her. They did not want to see the look on her face. Elsewhere in the Sol system, human leaders gathered in the bunker beneath Olympus Mons on Mars. It was a place used only in times of deep threat. It had not been opened in 50 years. Now it glowed with red lights and whispered voices. Admiral Rourke stood at the center table, pointing at reports that scrolled across the screen. He said the attack was planned. He said the council had used the meeting as cover. He said, "We are fools if we think they will stop with one outpost." President Amina Dartsi sat at the end of the table, her face pale and her voice low. She said, "We gave them every chance." She said this was the final straw. She said it is time to act. The others agreed. One by one, heads nodded. Eyes narrowed. They opened old files. Files sealed for decades. Files marked with red warnings and cold silence. Project Black Star. A plan made long ago in case peace failed. In case words were not enough. In case the galaxy turned against Earth. They began to move ships. Quietly. Without signal. Without noise. Earth's moon base went dark. Saturn's rings held strange shadows. A comet near Neptune shifted course and vanished from sensors. Mira Chun was called to Mars. She stepped from a ship with slow steps and a face that no longer showed pain. Only purpose. The council's laughter still echoed in her mind. But so did the screams of Terra Novis. She walked into the war room and gave no greeting. She only said, "What do you need me to do?" Admiral Rourke answered with a calm voice. "We need you to lead Black Star." She did not smile. She only nodded. Back in council space, they watched Earth's silence with pride. They said humans were retreating. They said their fleets were scared. They said Mira Chun had failed. They celebrated in the sky palaces of the Kravix. They drank sweet fire wine in the towers of the Zelker. They shared stories of weak humans with their younglings. They joked that Earth would soon beg to rejoin the council. But something strange began to happen. Human trade signals stopped. Their listening posts went dark. Their colonies began to vanish from known space. The council sent probes. Some returned. Most did not. The ones that came back showed nothing. Just stars and silence. A few council members began to worry. They said something feels wrong. They said silence can mean many things. But their voices were small, and the others laughed louder to cover their fear. The Kravix Supreme General stood before his people and shouted that victory was close. He said humans were fading. He said the council was rising. He said nothing can stop unity. But deep in the black of space, where no signals reach and no laws protect, something moved. Black Star had left home, without a word, without a sound, and now it waited in the dark. The stars above the hidden base on Ganymede did not shine. They were dim behind layers of cold clouds and shifting shadows. The moon was quiet, the surface covered in ice. But Deep under that frozen shell, something powerful had awakened. A chamber carved from black steel stretched across the rock. Its walls were thick and silent, its halls lined with lights that glowed red like burning coals. This was where Earth had placed its final hope. This was the heart of Operation Black Star. Captain Mira Chan stepped through the final gate. Her boots echoed as she walked. Men and women in dark armor stood and saluted as she passed. They knew her name. They knew her silence. They had all seen the broadcast. At the far end of the command hall stood Admiral Rourke. He was tall and quiet with silver in his hair and scars on his hands. He held a tablet, but did not look at it. He looked only at her. Mira walked up and stopped. She said, "I am ready." He nodded slowly and said, "The time has come." Around them the walls shifted and screens came alive. They showed maps of the galaxy. They showed routes. They showed targets. But no weapons were drawn yet. No messages sent. This mission was not about talk. It was about presence. Operation Black Star had one rule. Do not speak. Not with voice. Not with signal. Not even with warning. They would strike and vanish. Like ghosts in the dark. Leave behind only silence and fire. Mira stepped into the launch bay. A long black ship waited for her. Sleek. Fast. Built from unknown metals and cloaked in silence fields. It was called Echo One. Her crew was already inside. They were the best from every branch. Pilots, hackers, stealth operatives. Not one had spoken since they were chosen. Each one knew the mission. Each one understood the risk. The ship launched without sound. It slipped beneath the surface, rose through a fake glacier, entered space like a shadow among stars. Back on Earth, the feeds remained quiet. No news, no reports, not even denials. Only silence. The Council noticed. Some asked questions. Why are Earth's trade ships gone? Why are there no replies from Mars? Why do our spies report nothing? The Kravix leaders said humans are sulking. The Zelker said they are hiding. The Tolans said they are ashamed. But others were not so sure. In a small system near the edge of Council space, a supply station blinked off the grid. No alarms. No explosions. Just gone. A patrol ship arrived 3 days later. They found only ruins. Metal bent. Systems fried. No bodies. Only a single human flag hanging in the command center. It had no message. Just a flag. Red, white, blue. Council leaders met again. This time their voices were lower. Less mocking. More careful. The Tolan said it may be time to speak with Earth again. The Kravix snarled and said no. We are not afraid of shadows. He said humans are playing games. He said we will crush them if they strike again. He did not know. They already had. Over the next cycle, 3 more stations vanished. A dreadnought found adrift and empty. A listening post reduced to glass. A mining colony turned to smoke. Each time no words. No signs. Just silence. And that flag, Echo One, moved in secret. It danced through gravity fields. It vanished behind suns. It struck with speed and precision, then left without a sound. Inside the ship, Mira watched every move. She marked each strike, each decision. Her eyes never blinked long. Her voice never rose. Her crew followed her lead. They did not cheer. They did not speak. Only hands moved. Only eyes met. In one mission, they entered a Council weapons lab orbiting a gas giant. Inside, they found humans. Prisoners. Experimented on. Broken, but alive. They freed them. Left the lab in flames. And left a small data pad in the center of the control room. The pad played the Terra Novis broadcast on loop. Over and over. Burning colony. Crying children. Myra's face. Then silence. Back in Council space, the news spread fast. Now fear began to grow. Some worlds went dark on purpose. Some stopped sending messages. Some asked for protection. The Council tried to call Earth. Sent offers. Sent gifts. Sent envoys. They received nothing. One brave diplomat flew to Earth space. He sent a message. I come in peace. I wish to speak. He vanished before he reached the border. The Kravix called for war. They said burn the Sol system. They said end this silence. But many did not agree. The council was no longer united. Some feared more strikes. Some feared Earth's silence more than its weapons. Mira Chun sat in her chair on Echo 1. The stars outside drifted past. Her crew watched her, waiting, always waiting. She opened a file. Inside were names. Council leaders, commanders, war architects. Each one had signed off on the attack at Terra Novis. She tapped one name. Target confirmed. The mission moved again. This was not war. This was something else. Something colder. Something sharper. A message that did not need to be spoken. The message was this: you pushed too far. Now we do not speak. We act. And the stars above whispered. Black Star has begun. The morning sky over the council world of Viral opened with gold and green clouds. Tall towers reached toward the stars. Flying crafts zipped through bright air lanes. Shops played soft music, and children ran under glowing trees. It was a normal day. Peaceful, calm, safe. In the great square, near the council hall, a crowd gathered for the unity speech. The Zelker representative stood at the center. His thin wings shimmered as he waved to the crowd. He smiled and said Earth will soon return. He said humans are only hiding. He said there is no danger. Above the city's satellites spun in silence. One of them blinked, then vanished from a grid. At first no one noticed. A small black object entered the edge of the system. No name, no signal, no warning. It moved fast. Too fast for scans. Too fast for questions. Inside, Echo 1 Mira Chun stared at the screen. Her crew sat ready. No word spoken. No sound but the soft hum of the ship. Mira gave a single nod, and the ship split into 3 smaller crafts. Each one vanished into shadow. Below on Viral, the speech continued. The Zelker spoke of peace. He spoke of order. He raised his arms and smiled wider. Then the sky broke. Without fire. Without noise. The central tower collapsed inward. A second later, the council archive building turned to dust. A black wave rippled across the air lanes, and every military signal in orbit shut down at once. People screamed and ran. Alarms tried to sound but failed. Nothing worked. No lights. No signals. No control. In space, 3 council warships tried to launch. Each one exploded before they cleared dock. Echo 1 returned to its full shape and vanished again, leaving behind silence. No human message. No threat. No demand. Only a small device left in the ruins of the square. It played one image. Mira Chen's face. Staring cold. Unmoving. Then the flag of Earth waved once and faded. The council called an emergency meeting. 10 races arrived in panic. Some demanded answers. Some called it terrorism. Some simply trembled. The Kravix slammed his fist on the table and shouted that this was war. The Tolan remained silent. The Zelker wiped dust from his wings and said Earth must be punished. But others were quiet. They had seen what happened. They had heard nothing. No warnings. No errors. Just silence. And then loss. One council member said maybe we are not fighting a nation. Maybe we are facing something else. Back on Echo 1, Mira watched from afar. She marked the mission complete. She closed the screen. Her hands rested on the console. No one cheered. No one smiled. The first strike was only the beginning. On Earth, people did not dance in the streets. There were no parades. No victory lights. Only stillness. Only quiet. Only resolve. Families lit candles for Terra Novis. Children watched old news clips. The world moved slower, but stronger. In the Sol system, stations hummed. Ships moved. Satellites blinked like silent sentries. No one spoke of peace anymore. No one begged for it. They had learned that some things do not respond to kindness. That some powers only understand silence. And that silence, when sharpened, cuts deeper than any blade. The council sent scouts to find Earth's fleet. They found nothing. Only echoes. Only wreckage. Only the soft trace of stealth drives. One scout found a human signal on a moon called Ultrax. They landed. They searched. They found a crater where a base had been. And in the center was a single statue. Mira Chun, standing tall. No words on the base. No symbols. just the form of the captain who never raised her voice but never stepped back. The scout returned with the image. It spread across council space. Many who saw it said nothing, but they felt something. A weight, a chill, a message with no sound. The Kroviks prepared an attack fleet. Dozens of ships, thousands of soldiers. He said, "We will show them strength." But before they launched, their command hub went dark. Every door locked. Every light blinked. And then the shipyard lost gravity for 1 hour. When it returned, half the ships were gone. No sign of battle. No debris. Just empty sky. A single message appeared on the main screen. "You pushed too far." Then nothing. Across the galaxy, silence became louder than words. Worlds began to close their ports. Alliances weakened. Fear replaced pride. Still Earth said nothing. Still Mira, Chun did not speak. Still Echo 1 flew unseen. The first strike had not been fire. It had been control. It had been a lesson. It had been a shadow reaching out to show what silence can do when forced into action. And in the black between stars, where no light shines, where sound cannot follow, the ship moved again. New targets, new silence, and the galaxy waited, not for words, but for what would come next. The council tower once stood as a symbol of peace, but now its halls were filled with fear. Voices once proud now whispered. Steps once firm now slowed. The echo of silence hung heavier than any threat. World after world had gone dark, not because of fire, not because of invasion, but because of stillness. Lights stopped blinking. Ships vanished. Weapons refused to launch. And always the same sign remained. A single Earth flag waving in a place it should not be. The Zelker ambassador held a trembling cup in his claws. He no longer smiled. He no longer spoke of unity. He looked at the empty seat where the Krovik's general once sat. The seat still warm. The general never returned. The council called a meeting not to plan war, but to beg for peace. They sent messengers to the edge of Earth space. They brought gifts, old promises, new words. Please come back, they said. Please speak to us again, they said. Please tell us what you want. But Earth remained silent. The messengers reached the soul border. Their ships stopped by invisible barriers. They sent messages. No reply. They waited. No sound. They tried to land on Mars. They found the surface cold and empty. They found eyes watching, but no hands raised. No voice spoke. The council then sent one of their own, a respected voice, a being who once stood beside humans in past wars. He asked for Mirachan by name. He said, "I was your friend once. I helped your people when others would not." He was granted landing. He stepped into a silent base. No soldiers pointed guns. No alarm screamed. But the silence crushed him. He walked through empty halls. Every screen played the same image. Children running from fire. The colony of Terra Nova's falling. And Mirachan's face unmoved as she watched. In the final room, he found a recording device. It activated with his presence. Myra's voice spoke for the first time in weeks. She said you were a friend. She said you stood beside us. She said you warned the council not to push. But they did. She said peace was always our first path. She said we gave every chance. We sent every warning. We forgave every loss. And you made us watch. You made us watch as you burned the helpless. And now, we have nothing left to say. The message ended. The room went dark. And the ambassador returned alone. His words shaken. His eyes heavy. He said they are not angry. They are not loud. But they are finished. The council split. Some still called for strength. Others packed their bags and left. Races that had once ruled planets now asked Earth for guidance. Former enemies sent quiet offerings. Humanity responded to none. Echo 1 moved without sound. It passed through shadows. It visited systems without warning. It left no damage. But after each visit, the system stopped supporting the council. People whispered that humans had become something new, not a force of war, not a voice of peace, but a wall that would no longer fall. On Earth, the silence continued. Cities worked. Children learned. Ships launched. But there were no speeches, no marches, no songs, just purpose. In the deep space between stars, a Tolan science ship drifted too close to a restricted sector. It sent a message by mistake, a polite one, asking for coordinates. The ship returned to base 3 hours later. The crew had changed. They spoke slower, their eyes distant. When asked what happened, they said nothing. They said, "We saw no ships. We heard no sounds. But we understood." The council grew desperate. They offered planets, trade, even apology. Still, Earth said nothing. One small planet in council space declared it would join Earth openly. It sent word and waited for response. It received none. But in the night sky, a single human drone flew across the stars. A quiet signal played from its core. No words, just a soft tone, a signal of peace, but also a warning. You choose, but know what silence means. The council now sat in fear, not from weapons, but from the unknown. What is their plan, they asked. What is their goal, they asked. What do they want? But the answer never came. Mira-chun sat in her quarters aboard Echo 1. Her hands rested calmly, her face still hard. She had not smiled, not once. But her crew trusted her more than any leader before. They followed her not for medals, not for glory, but for truth. They had all watched Terra Novis burn. They had all watched the council laugh. Now, they watched the stars and waited for the next message that would never be sent. Because now, silence spoke for all of Earth. The Thalruns stood tall in their marble fortress, proud as always. Their leader wore golden armor and a red crown that burned with energy. They had ruled 6 systems for 200 years. They had never lost a war. They had never bowed to any species, not even the council. They watched the fall of Viral. They saw the silence. They heard no reply, but they laughed. They said humans hide because they fear. They said Mira-chun is a ghost. They said Earth will speak again if pushed harder. The Thalruns sent warships to the edge of Sol. They fired warning shots into the void. They announced their arrival on open channels. They said, "Come face us." They said, "Enough of this silence." They said, "We are not afraid." The stars answered with nothing. Their ships waited for 1 hour, then 2, then 10. They fired again. Still nothing. So they moved closer. A small human listening post floated near a red dwarf star. Unguarded, empty, cold. The Thalrun boarded it. They smashed the screens. They burned the flag. They left their symbol carved into the walls. Then they left. They thought it was done. They thought they had won. 3 days later, their homeworld turned black. Satellites failed. Gravity shifted. A dark cloud appeared above their capital. At first, they thought it was a storm. Then they saw the shape. A massive vessel, larger than any ship in known records. Black and smooth, silent. It hovered for 5 hours, then moved once. A soft wave of light passed over the surface. No fire, no sound, no warning. Then the world cracked. One half broke from the other. Oceans froze. Skies burned. Cities vanished. The ship left. No message, no trace, no flag, just silence. The council held another emergency meeting. This time, fewer seats were filled. Some races had gone into hiding. Others claimed neutrality. Many simply stopped answering. The ones who remained argued again. "This is genocide," one said. "This is madness," said another. "We must act," said a third. But none dare move. The Zelker ambassador cried for the first time in his long life. He asked, "How did we not see this coming?" He asked, "Why did we push them so far?" The Tolan spoke with a soft, tired voice. He said, "We all saw it. We just thought they would break, not harden." The council voted again. Not for war, not for peace, but for surrender. They wrote a long message, filled with pleas, filled with offers, filled with fear. They sent it toward Earth. No reply. They sent another. Still nothing. Then, finally, a signal came. One line only. "We warned you." The message stopped. The council fell quiet. Across the galaxy, statues of council heroes were torn down. Schools erased old stories. Children asked why they lied, why they mocked Earth, why they ignored the signs. In the markets, whispers replaced pride. In the skies, Earth ships moved like shadows. In the dark corners of planets, voices prayed for mercy. But silence had no church, no altar, only space. On Luna, the new Earth Council met. No long speeches. No loud voices. Only Mira, Chun, standing before them. She said, "We are not conquerors." She said, "We are not monsters." She said, "We are finished waiting for respect. For now on Earth stands alone. We do not ask. We do not warn. We do not parley." They all nodded. The fall of pride was not marked by fire. It was marked by silence. It was marked by the sound of fear without sound. The scream inside every heart. The weight of a silence earned. Echo 1 drifted past the edge of a dying star. Its crew still calm, still focused, still loyal. They had no flag. They had no anthem. But every system they passed remembered one thing. Earth no longer speaks, because silence now speaks for Earth. The stars above Luna shimmered in quiet grace. No warships roared. No siren screamed. The great halls of the new Galactic Assembly stood calm beneath the Earthlight. Silver towers curved toward the sky like blades frozen in time. Each tower built by human hands. Each stone set with care. Not for pride, but for memory. The galaxy had changed. Borders redrawn. Maps erased. Languages forgotten. Now they spoke less. Now they listened more. Inside the assembly hall, 100 voices once filled the air. Now only whispers moved between seats. Some spoke of trade. Some spoke of rebuilding. But none spoke without care. The flags of many worlds still hung from the walls. But one flag stood at the center, white and blue, worn from time. The Earth flag. It was not raised in triumph. It was placed in silence. Mira Chin walked through the great doors alone. Her uniform simple. Her boots quiet on the stone. She did not wear medals. She did not carry weapons. But everyone stood as she passed. Her eyes held the weight of what was lost, and the fire of what must never be forgotten. She took the central seat. She did not bow. She did not wave. She simply sat and waited. The room grew still. The ambassador of a small outer world spoke first. He said, "Our people remember what we did." He said, "We watched and said nothing." He said, "We are sorry." Mira nodded, but said nothing. Another voice rose. A race once proud, now humbled. He said, "We taught our children that humans were weak. Now we teach them that silence is not weakness. It is warning." Still Mira said nothing. A young diplomat asked the question many feared to ask. He said, "Will Earth ever speak again?" Mira looked at him, her gaze calm and sharp. She stood. She walked to the center of the room. She placed a single stone on the floor. It was smooth and dark, carved with the word "remember." She turned and faced them. Then she spoke, "Only when we are sure someone is listening." And the room fell quiet again. Outside, in orbit, Echo 1 circled the moon. Its lights dim, its crew silent, its mission complete. They had not fired in months. They had not moved in days. But they remained, always watching, always ready. On Earth, cities grew again. Children played without fear. Old buildings stood tall with scars left untouched. Not to hide the past, but to honor it. People walked without looking over their shoulders. But they never forgot. Not what was taken, not what was given in return. Museums were built not of victory, but of warning. Stories told in soft voices. Lessons passed down from mother to child, from soldier to student, from silence to soul. The galaxy was not ruled by Earth. Earth did not ask for thrones. It did not send out kings. It did not demand gold. But everywhere, the silence was known. Ships gave way when Earth vessels appeared. Borders opened when human eyes watched. And when Earth said nothing, everyone listened harder. The stars became calmer. The space lane safer. Because one world had learned the cost of being pushed too far, and had made sure no one would forget it. Mira Chun retired with no fanfare. She lived near the shores of Europa in a quiet dome with glass walls. She walked at night. She listened to the wind. She watched the moons move like slow dancers through the black. People came to ask her questions. She rarely answered, but always listened. One boy asked her, "Did silence really win the war?" She looked at the stars for a long time, then answered, "It was never a war. It was a promise." The boy nodded, though he did not understand. Not yet. Years later, when Mira passed her home, was left untouched. The dome preserved. The walls kept just as they were. And above her resting place stood the same word carved into stone. Remember. And so they did. The galaxy moved on. New voices rose. New worlds joined. But no one laughed at Earth again. No one ignored its silence. No one called it weak. Because silence had spoken. And silence had won.